Rashi Prakim. In truth, we all know this is the pratim of this sugya is a lifetime of avoda to verstehen alle pitchivkas. It's a lifetime. It's pasha a lifetime. It's not, I'm learning all the time. I have to tell you, I listened to drushes of my own, which are kind of painful from years ago. And I'll say this much. Baruch Hashem, I don't dingzach with myself. I actually agree with what I said. However, I will tell you, as I go back over time, what I recognize is that I was lacking shleimus in the sugya. And all the time I'm trying to work on creating a better shleimus, a better picture that captures the sugya. And I'm going to try and attempt to lay down today the sugya as best as I have it today. It doesn't contradict anything I've said in the past, but I think it's a binyan that I've been building and understanding. And this is probably the best I got it yet. We'll see what happens next year. Over the Vaila, this is where I'm at. In front of me, I'm aware, I've been told, and I see from my own experience over Shabbos, is we have a chelik gadol, probably a little more than Raiv, of people who have tremendous education and knowledge and awareness of this sugya. For some of you, you may find that it's a little primitive, what I'm saying. It's basic. You understand it. You knew that. Like, get on, say a chiddush, Russell. Let's hear something new. I can only tell you that I myself, in training over the years, consistently went to workshops and, I had to for my license and all that kind of stuff. And after a while, it got very frustrating as I basically spent a lot of money, took off time, went to a hotel, lost income to hear basically what I knew. And it got frustrating. And then one day, the Eibishter shicked such a beautiful machshav in my brain as I was stuck on the New Jersey Turnpike in snow, coming back for like a 6-hour drive in snow. It was miserable. And I was feeling miserable. And then he gave me this yediyah. I went to a conference on abuse. And one of the world experts was speaking. And I realized I walked out this bitter feeling that I basically knew everything that I was told. And I felt very like a wasteful. And then I chapped, wow, Baruch Hashem, the chizuk I got hearing from an expert, that basically I have the sugya, gave me chizuk, that by the way, all my clients, everyone commented, it's good, they knew, you went to a conference, right? How did they know? I was mechuzuk, I had more confidence. And so those of you who find some of these things perhaps a little bit, you knew it, have chizuk. Don't be disappointed. Be confident in yourself. Be strong and be secure that you are Baruch Hashem. And then hopefully you'll get a few nuggets of Chidushim too that will help us all be mechazik. We're going to divide up and walk through the sugya, starting with what should it have looked like? What should have happened? Because by understanding what was meant b'siyata d'shmaya, for those who can pull it off, which is very few, what is it meant to look like, the sugya of parenting, of bringing up the kids? And I think we'll understand better from that where it goes wrong, and then we'll know what to do to try and help fix it, if it makes sense. And then I want to talk about the journey of a parent, what we go through. I want to break it down for you through the steps so you can understand what steps you have to go through, and they're inevitable, so that we can all understand that journey. Normative parenting, we're going to start with that, is essentially break it down into 3 simple steps. And if you think of it as a foundation, an amud, like we have pillars here holding up the building, is like an amud that holds up a person throughout the journey through life. And if we could do this right, if we knew this before we got married, and we understood this, and we were trained in this, and we worked on our marriage and our midas, and we spent 80 years in the world before we got married, working on all this, and then had children, maybe we could do it. But anyway, I'm going to lay it down what it is. There are 3 stages. What's meant to happen is a child is born into this world, and there's zeicha to nurture. Nurture. That's the first stage, 0 to 2. Unconditional love. That means whatever they do, doesn't matter what they do wrong, we look at them and we love them. And they feel from us through the words we say, which is pre-conscious, they're pre-verbal, they don't understand the words, but they're just feeling it, the cooing sounds that we make to them. They see the facial expression. They watch your body language and they feel your body language as you hold them and you nurture them. The tone of voice, the way you speak. So through facial expression, tone of voice, and body language, and the words that actually come out, 0 to 2, a child is zeicha to know I am unconditionally loved. And like all parenting, remember what I said, even in marriage, in all relationships where love occurs when there's a conflict, in parenting it's true too. That love happens at the moment of abyssal crisis. For example, a child is dirty, makes in its diaper and it's dirty and it's in pain and it's hurting. And you come and nurture it through that experience. And you change it lovingly and gently and kindly. And you put the cream on and everything else. And you make them feel good. You're nurturing your baby's neshama. You're teaching your child you feel safe and secure in this world. It's an opportunity more than the rest of the times when you think, now I can rest, they're asleep. No. That's not when you create nurture and love and resilience in life. It's when they're hurting and you pick them up and nurture them. Kal v'chayma. If you're on the way to a chasna, one of your relatives make a chasna and you have the baby on your lap and the mother is wearing a gown that she bought for the occasion, and as you get out at the chasna you see a massive stain on your gown from the baby that leaked through onto your clothing. And not only do you not freak out and the baby has to hear sharp words or angry sounds, but you laugh. You laugh. And you take pictures. If you finally convince your husband to actually paint the living room because it needs repainting, what man thinks it needs repainting? But the ladies know. And there is one here, one guy put his hand up. You repaint your living room and you have a toddler, 1.5-year-old, toddling around. And everyone's busy, it's been repainted, and you're looking forward to enjoying this living room, this dining room. And suddenly you hear a shriek and discover that somehow someone left a red permanent marker, that your little toddler decided to do some Picasso-type artwork on this brand new, freshly painted dining room wall. And what doesn't happen is the Spanish Inquisition. Who left the marker? What's going on? How could you do this? What were you thinking? Who? Where? And you run around with the marker screaming, and the child is zeicha to hearing, unfortunately, angry sounds and voices and hurt and pain. Instead of everyone bursts out laughing and you get your camera out and you pose in front of it and say, yeah, the Sheva Brachos, we're showing this one. And it's loving. It's nurture. It's kind. And it's meant to be like that. It doesn't matter what they do. They're colicky. They keep you up at night. And you know you got to go to work tomorrow. And you recognize it's going to be a big nisoyanum. I got a headache right now. And my husband has a headache too. We both have headaches. And the baby is colicky. But we find this gabras hanefesh to gently rock that baby and not do this. You take the baby. No, you take the baby. I got to go to sleep. I got to go to work. I got to... And there's no angry noises. There's no sounds of hurt and anguish and pain, of frustration, where the baby is surrounded by these hostile noises in this 0 to 2 years that teaches it somehow this world is not a safe place and my parents aren't safe people. What's meant to happen is that we hold them. We nurture them. We love them. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter how they test us, because there's nothing deliberate. And we just simply nurture them through that. That's 0 to 2, and that's all we're meant to do, nothing else. That's it. That's the whole sugya, 0 to 2. By the way, it doesn't stop at 2. It's meant to continue. It's just all we do, 0 to 2. And we're meant to keep doing that the rest of our lives. And when they struggle with us, we nurture them. We love them through it. We don't anger them through it. We don't get frustrated and communicate to them that you're a pain in my existence. You've made my life hard. But that they know we love them. And I want you unconditionally. That's 0 to 2. If we do it well, what we're meant to do is build on that 2 to roughly 16, 15, 14. Today I used to say 18, the Gemara in Kedushin Daf Lamed, the Gemara B'chanicha B'daka is Machlekes, whatever. But what we're meant to do is 0, I would say, from 2 rather till about probably today's 14, 15, 16, somewhere there, is we add on the basis of nurture, limit setting. We're meant to teach them to set limits. And guess what? If we were zeicha to do this sugya correctly, thank you, Shkoyach. Oh, he knows me already. Okay. There's another box. I've got 2 boxes here. I made a bracha, right? Yeah. If we do it properly, then when we start the limit setting, when we lay on our children limits to their, which we're mechuyev to do. Toddlers, they can go and do dangerous things. And we're mechuyev to set limits. And from 2 to 16, 15, somewhere around there, 14, we're constantly setting limits on various behaviors, whether it's walking near a street or a sidewalk, or coming near the stove and touching chas v'shalom something, or going into and they get their fingers caught in a door, chas v'shalom. There's unlimited opportunities for us, and our chiyuv is to teach them limits. And so we set limits on their life in a safe and healthy way, so they feel safe to separate from us, but they come back home because they feel safe also with us. They keep in a certain relationship and safety with us the whole time, and we set limits. And if you've done it on a basis, on a bed of nurture, then the assumption, the internal neshama's assumption of your child is likely to be that limit setting is not punitive from a horrible parent who hates me and just wants to make my life inconvenient and hurtful. Instead, my child experiences the limit setting to a degree as an extension of the nurture and the love, the unconditional love I gave my child, the 0 to 2. And all those times when we took the pictures with the crayons and the markers and the dirty gowns, and we took those pictures and we laughed about it, what we've built is the basis on which we can then set limits that the child hopefully will experience as an extension of nurture. And therefore not feel they're being punished and hurt, but feel they're being cared for. And as much as they resist, when it works like this, and you have to, for example, in an extreme case, and a kid acts out, and you have to send them to bed and early that night, and they go to bed frustrated and upset with you, but tomorrow morning, they love you, and it's gone, because they know it was right. They know that what they did was wrong, and you set limits on their behavior, and tomorrow morning, Uvdahu, they love you. It's gone. That's what we're meant to do. Nurture, build on that limit setting. And if we do, comes the end of the limit setting years, 16, 17, 18, when basically you're not setting limits anymore. You hope by then they have internal, self-imposed limits. They've learned. Then they turn to you for guidance. They want your guidance because they see your whole life, the focus was only ever to help them in their lives. So they look to you, which school, which yeshiva, which seminary, which shidduch, what job, what career, how do I manage money, everything. They turn to you for guidance in life. And for kids, as you get older, you want more guidance. Your kids actually, as they get older, turn to you because they begin to realize they have their own children. And then they realize, whoa, this is much harder than I realized. And they turn to you for guidance. And they come to Baba and Zaidi. They come to you for guidance. Because it was all built on this nurture that continued through life, where our interaction with you is for you, it's to help you, it's not for me. It's not about my ego. It's not about me getting nachas. You're not a nachas machine. It's my obligation. I brought you in this world. I didn't bring you in this world for me. I brought you in this world for Rabbi Shalom. I brought a neshama. I've got a gift. And you're my gift. And I'm going to help you fulfill that gift, your journey, your destiny, to be an Oved Hashem, to be nachas ruach to Rabbi Shalom. And that's what you're here for. It's not about my ego. A monashach, if we're zeicha to have an uninterrupted 0 to 2 with nurture on which we build the limit setting to 14, 15, 16, and then they turn to us for guidance, this is what life is meant to look like. This is how it's meant to be. That's the amud. That's the amud of the binyan of their life that we're meant to be building. That's what it should look like, ideally. Now take that amud. And imagine we built this amud, and now we're going to wrap cables around this amud to hold it strong throughout life. We're going to wrap like nice strong cables all the way up, all through life, around this amud to keep it like reinforced concrete, something strong and secure, something amazing. How do we do that? So those cables are the 4 S's that I talked about last time. Those cables are where we make sure our children always feel safe, secure, seen, and soothed. Those cables we wind around the amud. That's what's meant to happen as they go through life and they don't feel safe, and we help them to feel safe. We make sure that you don't get abused. And if you do get chas v'shalom abused, it's external, it's environmental, it happens. We make sure we're there for you. We make sure you feel safe to talk to me, so that you can be resilient to life struggles. Because some of life's struggles, I don't care how much nurture and how much limit setting and guidance you do, things happen. The Eivish, the Shikt, his nisyonis in the world, there are bumps in the road that are inevitable, unavoidable. And it's all from Rabbi Shalom. Ein ra yored min hashamayim. There's no ra. It's what we do with it is ra. It all comes down. It's there for us. It's all there for us. And so when they feel unsafe, we make them feel safe. And we start winding those wires around the reinforcing the amud to keep them strong. We make sure they feel secure, that the environment of our Shabbos table, of our Yom Tov table, of our home is one of security, where they can be confident in the love of parents for each other. In the case where there's only one parent, where that parent does their best they can to support them and love them and care for them, it doesn't make a difference. Everyone, it's just a different nisayon. And it's not like you can't do it if you're not. It's just a different set of nisyonis. You take your set of circumstances, whatever it may be, and you help your child feel safe and secure. You protect them as best you can, and they know that even if something happens, they can come talk to you. You're going to be there for them. You're not going to get angry. Why'd you let this happen? Why'd you let that happen? What were you thinking? Why'd you go there? They feel safe with you. They feel secure and confident about the type of home and environment that they're living in, that they feel secure, that they can talk to you. And they feel secure there's going to be a breakfast and a supper, and that the laundry is going to get done. They feel secure in a certain environment, that the basics of life are going to happen for them. This is wrapping wires around the amud. They feel seen. We have to make sure that our kids, they're all unique. Rabbi Shalom, Chanei Chana Pitaka is not a line that's meant to be said in drushes for inspiration only. It's real. Each one is different. And our children are entitled to us spending the time to work out, what are they? Who are they? What are they about? What's unique about them? Not us simply imposing our ratzon, our will, my needs on you to try and shaft you in my image. But Adarabah, who are you? And we're looking from day one to understand what's unique about you until our children feel seen in their uniqueness. They see we rejoice in who they are. And so we wind more wires around the almond because we help them feel seen. And then soothed. That we make sure that when they have their bumps in the road, when they fall and scrape their knees, that we don't always criticize, why were you doing this, and who said you should do that, and you brought it on yourself. Chas v'shalom. I told you not to do this. What were you expecting? But first you soothe them. You want to give them a drasha, wait 2 days. Wait 2 days. Talk to them 2 days later. But when it happens, put them on your knee and soothe them. Hold them. Soothe them. Make them feel soothed. Help them over their struggles and pain and hurt. And so with safe, secure, seen and soothed, we wind these wires, these around the reinforced concrete. We make a pillar for life. This, I submit to you, is what's meant to happen ideally. And when it happens ideally, so children are resilient. Children can go through life. This explains in the few circumstances where it does happen. It does happen sometimes. It actually does happen with some children sometimes, just like I've described, or enough of it. Enough of it. It's not an on-off, right or wrong, black or white, true or false. It's kamos. It's enough of these components occur that create resilience. And so kids, even if they go through difficulties, severe difficulties, they will survive. They will do well. They actually may grow from it. Actually, most organizations such as this and others seem to be run and helped by people who themselves went through a lot of struggles. Isn't that interesting? And it's always like that. All the great organizations and the great leaders of the world who've done marvelous things and helped humankind are always people who went through traumatic, difficult experiences. Why is that? Because I submit to you, they were zeiche in their own childhood to this model. I can tell you, I was pretty much zeiche to this. That was my gift. I thank my mother. My mother gave me these things. This is what she did. I was lucky. I was fortunate. I don't take any credit for it at all. I wasn't involved. I didn't ask her. I didn't understand. She never heard my drushes. And then naturally, I think she gave it to me. And so as we went through life with all the trauma and the struggles and the difficulties, we kind of bounced back. We were resilient, and you turn it into something positive. That's the Ein Ra Yored Min Hashamayim. That's what it means. And it becomes a positive in your life, and it actually taps into who you are and your essence to bring out more. This is the picture that Eibishter gave us. This is how it's meant to work. So the question is, what happens when it doesn't? And it doesn't in most cases. And the reasons why I don't think is I get to go into right now, but it's pashut that the world we live in doesn't offer us naturally this picture. I think that's fair to say. The world we live in, the world our children are bringing up their children in today, simply doesn't offer this as a natural picture. Yes, you have to work for. You have to know this before you get married. You have to know this when you get married. You have to show this to your children and your grandchildren so they know and they have to understand what they're doing, because without it, they're going to be in real trouble in the world we're living in today. Because it isn't pasha to produce this binyan with these wires as I've described it, is not natural or pasha. It has to be worked for. What happens when it doesn't work? So if you don't have all these things, the nurture, the limit setting, the guidance, you don't have the 4 S's, but you have some of it, and there's no trauma, chances are you'll struggle through life. Chances are, even without it, if trauma doesn't happen, chances are you'll muddle through. You may not be the most happy person. I think it's what we call in the mental health world, you'll be from the walking wounded. You'll be the walking wounded. You'll go through life. You'll schlep along. You're never quite aware that there's a ball and chain around your ankle that you're pulling through with you. It's heavy, feels off. But you know what? You're a regular Yid. You're Dominion, and you do things, and you dress right. You're basically with the sugya, although you feel the heaviness, you just don't know what it is. If you have money, you'll go to therapy. If you don't, you won't. It's life. But you'll muddle through. And lots and lots and lots of people muddle through who didn't have these things. They didn't have this foundation. Well, they didn't have trauma. And our sugya starts now, you see, when trauma hits. Because when trauma hits and you don't have enough of what I just described, then forgive my language, but all hell lets loose. When trauma hits, without what I've described, you don't have the internal ingredients for resilience. You don't have it. It wasn't given to you. You don't have it. So the neighbor next door, who did the same parenting you did, the same muddle of not quite enough nurture, limit setting, and guidance. I can hear her screaming at her kids at night, right through the window. It doesn't make sense. Her kids are going to school. They're dressing right. And it doesn't make sense. And you eat your heart out wondering, what's the difference? I don't get it. I don't think I'm any worse than they are. Guess what? You're not. Not a drop. Not a dot. The difference was that, unfortunately, trauma hit. And without this foundation, when trauma hits, you have not got, the child doesn't have the ability to have resilience. I want to explain why. In the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, they talk about trauma, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Grada, that's not, in my opinion, the real sugya for most of our kids. It's not. And I'll, if B'siyat Dishma, explain that too. It's a different type of trauma. They don't talk about it properly. Now it's sort of becoming, we call it complex trauma. I'll come to it in a moment. But let's just for a moment talk about, in the books, PTSD. And I want to isolate just one descriptive piece of PTSD as it's described in this manual of the American Psychiatric Association. And it says as follows, that the trauma victim will have, listen to these words, I'll repeat it, a severe psychological reaction. Think about your kids, please. As I'm talking this line, just tune in, close your eyes and just tune in to your child's crazy behavior when sometimes they seem to freak out or look psychotic and crazy. Just tune in to that moment. It's such a painful, horrible moment. And listen to these words. Your child will have a severe psychological reaction. If you're a trauma victim, you'll have a severe psychological reaction at exposure to internal or external cues that symbolize or resemble an aspect of the original trauma. I'm going to say it one more time. They will have a severe psychological reaction at exposure to internal or external cues that symbolize or resemble an aspect of the original trauma. If that doesn't break your heart, and then we blame them, we blame and judge them. When trauma strikes and you didn't have what I described at the beginning, they didn't have it, which most people don't. The few do. There is no resilience to hold on to. And every time they get exposed to a detail, something, an internal or external cue that symbolizes or resembles an aspect, Rabbi Shalom, it's kemat everything and anything. They have a severe psychological, I'm not making this up, Rabbi say. This is in the books. They have a severe psychological reaction. And never we blame and judge them for that reaction. We kill them for that reaction. We hold them accountable for that reaction. Why can't you just behave? Why can't you just go to school? Why can't you just write? And all we're watching is a severe psychological reaction to trauma. That's what we're watching. And Rahman and Islam, we blame them. We attack them. To which they have another severe psychological reaction to my attack on them and my critique of them. And besides Shirish Nishmasam, all they want to do is be loved. And what we offer them, we, the world, is hurt and pain, misunderstanding, discouragement, shame. Because we didn't chab, that we didn't. It wasn't our fault. But we weren't zeicher, as most people aren't, to give them the tools of resilience. We didn't build that armament. We didn't do it. We didn't do it deliberately. It wasn't our fault. We didn't know. We didn't chab. We tried the best we could, but we didn't give it to them. And we didn't know that if trauma will strike, we have not given them the wherewithal to cope. And then we blame them for that. And we judge them and critique them for that. Rahman al-Islam. So what does a child do? How do they live with that? How do they cope with that? What do they do to cope? So they have to shield themselves from pain. They have to find a way to free themselves from hurting because the pain is so unbearable they want to die. As they find something that should make them feel some sense of happiness, something. They look desperately for something because they're in such pain and sorrow. They have no clue what to do. They don't understand what's going on. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't know what to talk to them. They have no sophistication or knowledge, nothing. They just don't want to hurt. It's not a hashkafic choice they make. They just don't want to hurt. And nobody told them the difference between happiness and pleasure. No one informed them. How do you actually find happiness? How do you stop hurting and be happy? And they don't know that. They don't know that the only place you find happiness in this world is in the embrace of a long-term, meaningful relationship. That's where you find happiness. Everything else is pleasure. It's all pleasure. And the reason it's that way is because Rabbi Shimon made it that way. That we should find happiness only ach barak in the embrace of a long-term, meaningful relationship. Because we're meant to take that and transfer that to Rabbi Shalom. Shezeu atan gamiti mikol edunim shecholim limotze. Zog the Mesil Shashar. Lenus mizivach shchina. A long-term, meaningful relationship with Rabbi Shalom. And so he gave us one vehicle in this world to find true happiness. The embrace of a long-term, meaningful relationship. That's all he wants. That's what everything else is pleasure. It's all pleasure. It's geschmack, but it's pleasure. Doesn't last. It's like a Chol Hamoed trip. Right? You spend a fortune of money, aggravated the kishkas out of yourselves. You schlep to some idiotic amusement park where you spend tons of money wondering, what am I doing here? Trying to shield your kids from all the lack of sneers as they beg you to go on 4 million rides and complain bitterly about the long queues. And then they come off and they're just on to the next one as if nothing happened. And the painful part is when you get in the car on the way home, they're all miserable. And mothers are intelligent enough to bring tons of food and keep stuffing them with food on the back seat of the car. because they're so miserable, because if she doesn't, there's going to be a war between their father and them for all this money he just spent and wasted. Rabbi said that's pleasure, that's not happiness. Happiness is a Chol Hamoed trip where you find a completely empty park somewhere and take a picnic and a frisbee and a ball, and you take your kids and you play with them in a park with nobody around. It doesn't cost anything. And everyone comes back and they don't want to leave. They don't want to go home. That's happiness. And it doesn't, by the way, guys, it doesn't cost anything. It's amazing. But our kids, unfortunately, they don't know. No one told them about happiness and pleasure. So instead of seeking happiness, because they don't know, they are in so much tsar, severe psychological pain, a reaction of such tsar because of their trauma, that they just want the pain to go away. And they're little. They can be 9, 10, 11 years old. And they start already a process of desperately trying to suppress their hurt and pain. And so they look for something that takes away the pain. And they find, music that's a little bit edgy for your culture or community. And they secretly listen to this music. Or they read a book, perhaps from the library, that's not appropriate. And all they're trying to do is just shield themselves from pain. It's an anesthetic. It's aspirin. It's Tylenol. It's not a hashkafa. And no one told us this, so we turn it into a hashkafa. Because the kids don't know, we will catch them. And we always catch them. And predictably, unwittingly, unknowingly, we turn it into hashkafa. Why are you reading this? What are you doing? You're not a Bas Yisrael, you're not a Ben Torah. What? This is not appropriate. And we make it into a ganze sugya of inappropriateness behavior, missing the whole point that all that was happening is my kid is hurting. And when we yell at them, and we scream at them, and we hurt them, and we control them and discipline them, and punish them for doing this inappropriate music or stuff, which was only about anesthetic. That's all it was. So they get a hole in the heart that gets bigger. Because the only place you find happiness is in the embrace of a long-term meaningful relationship, which when you scream at them, it opens that hole in the heart even more. And when the hole in the heart gets bigger, they hurt more, not less. And unwittingly, we propel them to do something more. Because apparently that wasn't good enough and they need something else. They turn to even more inappropriate music, even more inappropriate literature, clothing, behaviors. And all they're trying to do is shield themselves from pain, nothing more. And then we catch them again. And the school catches them. And we start screaming at them a threat. You're going to get thrown out of school. What are you thinking? You crazy? And then someone tells us it's fey-petch. That'll fix everything. And someone says you've got to just tell them. I never knew what that meant, though. Just tell them. Tell them what? What they didn't know? And apparently I tell them that they'll click their heels and say, oh, of course, no problem. Of course, fine, sure, of course. Like, what would the just tell them people thinking? The answer is they weren't. They're clueless. But unfortunately, in our idiotic desperation without training, we believe them for a moment because we're desperate and we're frightened. So we just tell them. And the hole in the heart gets bigger because it breaks down their relationship with us because they don't feel safe with us. They feel less secure with us. They totally don't feel seen by us. And they zicher are not soothed by us. And so we make them less resilient. They hurt more, and they need drugs. Now he needs a girlfriend. Now she needs a boyfriend. And so they go downhill, step by step, and we catch them again, and we scream at them again. And all they're looking for is anesthesia. They're looking to stop hurting because they suffered trauma. We know for a fact, when I first used to say this, people, they vilified me for it. Now everyone agrees that of the sugya of the children who are in crisis, the kips, the children in crisis, children in pain, 80% of them went through sexual trauma. 80%, 8 out of 10. Of the others, they had severe learning trauma. They weren't able to do well in school. There are a variety of reasons why. They may have de facto learning disabilities. They may have real learning disabilities, impulse disorders, who knows, it doesn't matter. But their experience because of it was that every day going to school is traumatic. What does it feel like to go to school every day knowing in advance I'm a loser, I'm a failure, I'm being forced by my parents, bribed and forced to go to school, to a place that is a hostile environment that affirms that I am worthless. Do we realize what we're doing? We're shoving our kids into an environment that absolutely affirms you are a worthless human being. We're happier when you don't show. And we find all sorts of tachbulas, thinking we're so clever to get them to go to school. Got to get them to go to school. And we wonder why it breaks down their relationship with us as we make them feel less safe, secure, seen, and soothed. And they don't trust us. And they feel lost and in pain. And of course they go down, and the hole in the heart gets bigger and bigger. As this is all occurring, they predictably go through alienation. They get alienated. First place they feel the alienation is sicher in school. They realize they walk into school and they get the evil eye from some well-meaning, uninformed teacher or Rebbe who thinks, I'm going to put this kid in their place. They're going to just know. And they give them the evil eye. And they know, I am persona non gratis. I am not wanted. They feel the feeling that the one place, their whole life, what is a child's life? Let's be honest. What's their life from 5 to 18? What is the life of a child? School. That's what they do for a living. They go to school. Imagine going and we're forcing our kids into schools knowing full well they are being made to feel worthless and we don't like you or want you and you're a threat to us. You threaten us. We look at you as a rebel, a myrid, chas v'shalom. We look at you as dangerous. And all they are is traumatized young people who are hurting and trying to soothe their pain. That's it. They're sweet, lovable, nice human beings who just don't want to hurt, and they feel entitled not to hurt. They thought they had a right to live in this world and not hurt. And seeing as we didn't take care of them and show them how not to hurt, they acted in their own defense and were adaptive to this world and start doing behaviors that soothe the pain. It's adaptive. They're trying to survive. And we kill them for that. And we alienate them from the place where they're meant to be every day. And then we wonder why they don't want to go to school. And why do they want to sleep? Does everyone ever wake up and think, why does my kid want to sleep till school is out? Everyone says, why do they sleep till 3, 4 o'clock? Isn't it magic they sleep till 3, 4 o'clock? Why? You know why? Because I don't want to deal with the fact that I'm not in school and school made me feel like a worthless worm. Like a predator, a disgusting human being. Yes, I'd rather go to sleep all day than think all day I should really be in school, because all I think about when I have that is external and internal cues that simulate and resemble an aspect of my original trauma, because I couldn't learn and they made me feel like a worm. I feel trauma all day. So yeah, I'd rather sleep till school is out. Thank you very much. And then people come and say, I don't know, they sleep till 3, 4. Wake up, that's why. So they get alienated from school. Next thing, of course, is the friends. The good friends. And I understand it. I hope nothing should be confused with critiquing. I'm trying to explain and describe. I'm not trying to critique. But the good friends, as if there are good and bad people. This is such a sick language. It makes me vomit. The non-struggling kids who were zeicha not to be traumatized. Those kids. Avi will come up with the Russian Davis for them. I'm sure he has one already. I'm going to hear about it in 2 minutes. The non-traumatized people, it's better not to be friends with her. It's better not to be friends with him who'll drag you down. So suddenly, not only are they alienated from school, but what could really hold them together and give them a sense of being cared for and being a person disappears too. Their friends. Friends are more important than anything in this world for a child. A young person, friends is their life. The drama with their friends is their life. And the so-called non-struggling are all disappearing in droves and alienating them, where there's nobody left but self-minded trauma victims who are all looking to find a way to cover up our pain and sharing drugs and information and sex with each other because they don't want to hurt, not because they're evil, not because they're bad, but because that's all they've got. It's all they've got. And they'd rather not die. And then the community sees them, sees the way they dress, and sees their hairstyles and their tattoos, and sees that they're, boys and girls doing things together. And so the community then decides, we better reject them too. This is not good for us, for our olam. Stoma, their homes, not they're Bali Tshuva. They're Belzers. It's crazy. It's like suddenly it's wrong to be a Baal Tshuva. It's wrong to be a Belzer. It's too yeshivish. They're nicht normal, those people. There's something about them, Epis. And so they start alienating the home, the community cut off. You start feeling isolated. Until now you had if you were in Muncie or Lakewood, you had your backyard, the kids played with their friends. Suddenly a new fence goes up around the backyards, around your house. Expensive trees appear to block the view from the neighbors. No, we just thought it was nice to have trees. I know it's February, but we thought. And so the alienation continues, where the child feels what they're doing to themselves and what's happening to them and the family. And they are bitter and angry. Imagine the hepech of safe, secure, seen and soothed of what they're experiencing now. And then without coming here, without getting educated, without going to Abi, without going to mosque, without going to all the wonderful organizations trying to help people, Rahman al-Itzlan, the final blow is when they feel their parents gave up on them. God forbid. And now they truly want to die. This is the journey of a child. This is what happens to our children. It's never their fault. It was never their fault. It's not hashkafa. It's not values. We're not going to get in some hashkafa guy giving, he's going to explain Yitzias Mitzrayim better to them. That's their problem. Let's get someone explaining sneers. It's trauma, Rabbi Say. It's trauma built on a chisaron which is shared by Rabbim, of the lack of the nurture, limit setting and guidance, the lack of the 4 S's that support it, which exists all over the place, not just here in this room. Don't be foolish. But when trauma happens and you don't have that, you get this. Is this a child's fault? Did any child do this? Did any precious neshama arrange for this? And every single piece of their behavior was simply Tylenol. Are they not entitled to Tylenol? Do we really want to take that from them too? And not replace it with something? The question we have to ask here today, every one of us, when you walk away from this conference: what am I going to replace for my child? What Tylenol am I going to bring them? Where is my spiritual Tylenol? If I want them to walk away from those behaviors that we're all so aggravated about, what are we going to replace it with? What are you going to give them back? What painkiller are you offering your children? That's the question we have to ask. How can I heal their pain inside so they won't need that stuff? Well, you think they want it? Nobody wants it. Nobody justifies. The only time they justify is when you criminalize them for wanting it. Then you can be entitled to a whole drasha about what's good about marijuana. When you don't criminalize it and you understand it, you sit there with them. I'm with you in your pain. Then you hear from them how much they hate their lives, and they hate their drugs, and they hate their relationships. They hate it all. No hashkafa here. This is simple tipshus to think this is hashkafic choices. They didn't have inside the wherewithal to hold them through trauma. Why should they? Where were they going to get it from? And again, I say to you, there are thousands of families who didn't give it either, but they didn't have trauma. It didn't happen to them. So they look like they're getting away with it. They just didn't have trauma. They're the same as you. They did the same parenting. You're no different. You're wonderful just like they are. And had they had the trauma, they'd be looking like you. There's no difference. They'd be here. Baruch Hashem, they didn't. They weren't. But they're no better than anyone here in this room. There are no better group of parents somehow out there because they're better. They knew what they were doing. It doesn't exist. There's no such notion. They did the same as you. But they didn't have trauma hitting their kids. And the question we have to ask is, what is my obligation? How do I replace all that stuff? Because I won't do it by debate, and I won't do it by, sneaking into their room and pouring bleach into his marijuana pot, to kill the marijuana in his closet. No. And getting the app on his phone to spy and see who is friendly with him, what he's doing in his Facebook account. I mean, it's utter foolishness. Anyway, they catch you. They're smarter at technology than we are. They always catch you in the end. They know. They're probably spying on your phone. They certainly know how to crack through all the security on your Windows-protected computer. They got a little dongle. They plug it in, reset the computer, and they're in. And they know how to pick locks, too. They're way ahead of us. It's all idiotic. Foolishness is missing the point. The question we have to ask ourselves when we walk out of here today is, what am I going to do to soothe my child's pain? What? What am I going to do? How am I going to change me so I can be the person to soothe their pain so they won't need that rubbish? No, it's Rabbi Russell, can you tell me how to talk them out of drugs? No, I can't. Don't ask me. And while all this is going on, what are you going through? What are parents? What do we go through? What's happening to us while this is happening to our children? There are 5 predictable stages we're all going to go through. And we need to go through them. It's not easy, but we need to go through them. If I ask for a show of hands, how many people here in this room have been accused by others or themselves ever of being in denial about their kids? Okay, most hands. Denial is the first stage. Oh, those parents, they're in denial. They don't know what's going on. They're in such denial. From the schools and the meisters and the relatives and the askonim, this word denial is thrown around. It's a sick word. It's used. It's an evil word, you see. Denial. It's a punishing word. You're in denial. Everyone hears that word. You cringe when you hear the word denial. I got news from you. The Ribbono Shel Olam created all midas, including denial. Denial is actually a very useful stage when you deal with trauma. It's a very helpful, useful stage. Because when you're facing trauma, it is so painful, it's so overwhelming, you're so frightened that I guarantee you, you will do something stupid, bad, or dangerous if you walk right into trauma. So the Eibishter gave us denial as like a soft landing. It's a soft landing. So that we can get slowly into the sugya and not make even more stupid mistakes. Slowly we become aware of the truths. I don't want anyone to ever feel embarrassed or ashamed about being in denial. It's not a bad word. It's a stage. It's natural. I think it's almost healthy. It's adaptive. The thing is, though, you just don't want to stay there. You want to get out. But take it as long as you need it. It's okay. Because you're going to make bad mistakes. But you have to come out of denial. Going through it is not, you're not stupid or bad or a fool if you're still in denial about the realities of your children. It's a stage. With time, you must come out of denial. You have to move through it. You have to look the sugya in the eye for what it is. You have to be honest about it. We have to face it, embrace it, we have to deal with it. The first stage, predictably, is denial. Move through it. Allow it to process. Allow yourself to come out. With the right support, the right guidance, we all come out of denial. We get real. We start being honest, truthful. Most people, when they come out of denial, they do something called bargaining. Bargaining is a mess. It's a real mess. And it's very expensive. Bargaining is where, in desperate moves, we try to bribe our kids to behave. It's a logically stupid step. But nevertheless, it's a step. We promised them a trip to Florida. If you'll just dress right, 1 extra inch on your skirt, and we'll go to Florida for a vacation for 3 days. I'll take you for show. Just 1 extra inch, Shefala, 1 extra inch. And of course you fall for it, and so does she. So she gets the 1-2 skirts with the extra inch. And by the time you've reached Florida, those skirts, oh my gosh, I thought I'd packed them! Get you a new bike if you just go to school. I'll get you a new bike, I promise you. Just give me 10 days of going to school, yeshiva time, and I'll get you a new bike. And 10 days they go to school and get the new bike, and then they sleep till 3 o'clock. And you feel like such a fool, you've been had. We bargain with Hashem. We take on all sorts of things. Just do this for me, Hashem, and I'll do that for you. As if, he's open for negotiation. We're so busy bargaining. Money, fillers, all sorts of, the ladies by the lich bench on Friday. Whoa, what a scene. Do it privately. We should have 2 sets of leichter. The one where you cry your head off and fall apart somewhere else. And then the one in the living room where you cry with a smile. You don't cry at all, you smile, and you're happy to greet Shabbos. We should have 2 sets, Bargaining. It's a natural but completely foolish stage. It doesn't get you anywhere at all. Haraya, that when bargaining fails, which it always does, you get angry. Really angry. You find yourself obsessed with anger. That's the 3rd stage. And you just can't seem to stifle the anger and the rage and the frustration. You're angry with your kid, which does a real lot of good. That's really helpful for the hole in the heart. That really stops them doing drugs. I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. She just got to know. We're back there again. I'm going to tell her. This is not acceptable in my house. Your Baba in Shemayim, what she must feel like? What she went through, such Mesiras Nefesh for this? We get angry. We get angry with our kid. We get furious with the schools. We blame them as if it's their fault. It's not. They contribute, but it's not their fault. They're part of a difficult society that we have to address. We blame the neighbors, for sure. We definitely blame the people who, they drew if they would just let their kids be friendly with mine, why did they have to pull away? We blame anyone. We blame each other, husbands and wives, blame each other constantly. You do one false move, and then we attack each other as if it's like the whole thing's your fault. If you hadn't done that, see what happened? You see what you did? And the worst is we blame the Rabbi Shalom. Why are you doing this to me? I've tried so hard. Why, Hashem? Why are you doing this to me? And we're consumed with this anger that's just destructive, destroys us. Nah. He says 5 minutes, not a chance. I didn't come from Eretz Yisrael to be told 5 minutes. I'm sorry. It's natural. What I'm describing is stages. They're natural. It's not a critique. You understand? I'm trying to validate. I'm trying to help us understand and validate ourselves. I got the go-ahead. But the anger destroys us inside. The anger is the hefech of why we got this problem in the first place. Someone showed me this morning, I spoke on Shabbos about a medrash. I knew it was in my brain. I was pretty close. I was supposed to thank God someone showed me the Rashi where he brings it down. But it was better than I said. Because I said the Lashon Lekach Yotzarta. Right? The Lashon is Nivcharta. You were chosen for this. You were chosen for this. Rashi comes through for us. I mean, consider it. He's given the Yiddish Kinder. He's the parent, Aaron Cohen, of Yiddish Kinder. He's now the father substitute for Klal Yisrael. Right? For the Yiddish Kinder. B'nai Yisrael. And the greatest catastrophe happens under his leadership as a father of Klal Yisrael. Imagine what he felt like. I guarantee he felt worse than we do. And the magnitude of what happened under his leadership. Imagine, Daigle. And Moshe Rabbeinu puts him straight in a moment. Lekach nivcharta. You were chosen for this. This is your job. Isn't that beautiful? We have to get rid of the anger. We have to let it go. It's a natural stage, Rabbi said. I get that. And we've got to move through the anger. Lekach nivcharta. You were chosen for this. Let it in. Drink it in. Drink it in deep. Lekach nivcharta. This is what you were chosen for. This is your journey. And your child, in pain, in Shemayim, looked at you and said, I think she could do it. I think he could do it. Yeah. I understand they're going to go through this. As they were shown by the Malachim. I understand that. Yeah, but who's going to help me down there? Yeah, let me show you all the new neshamas, the new gufim coming in the world. I'll show you. Oh, them. Yeah, the ones in Bar Park, those. Yeah, we'll take them. No, not the neighbor. No, them. Them. Lekach nivcharta. You were chosen for this. Drink it in. Let go of all the anger. It's natural. I understand that. The only person you should be angry with yourself is angry with myself. I didn't know this already. I just wish I knew this. That's it. Nothing else. And even that's destructive. Let it go. Let it go. Just be grateful I'm here now. Be grateful I'm here now and I'm getting this. I'm getting the picture, the sugya. Be grateful you made a fantastic choice to come here to Shabbos. And when you get through the anger, you come probably to one of the hardest stages of all. This is very challenging, but it's crucial. And it's where you truly, truly mourn the loss of the picture you once had. You mourn the loss. You let it go. When you had that baby, and you made that kiddush, and you can remember it, and you remember the joy and the happiness. You remember the feelings of dedication and wanting and longing to see a beautiful child, a happy child fulfilled. You dreamt about her life, about his bar mitzvah, her chasna. You had visions of what you hoped and you longed for. And that exact picture, that wasn't meant to be yours. Not that picture. to mourn the loss. You just have to mourn the loss of that picture. You'll have a different picture, trust me. And it's a wonderful picture. And it can be so special. And it can fill you, and you can have nachas and joy. But you can't have that picture. Not precisely the way you had it at the Kiddush, or the way you thought of it at the Shalom Zocher, the way you dreamt about it in those early years. No. You have to mourn. You have to mourn the loss. You have to let it go, because it's going to get in the way. You have to see your child for who they are, not for what you wanted them to be and what you dreamt and what you fantasized. Because that wasn't for you. That wasn't for us. There was a different picture the Rabbi Shimon had for us, but it wasn't that one. And it's crucial you mourn that loss and let it go. You have to let it go, because it will constantly get in the way. It will undermine you every step of the way, because you're still trying for the wrong picture, and your child will not feel seen. They will not feel secure with you. They will not feel safe with you. And they sicher won't feel soothed by you. So you have to mourn that loss. That picture, let it go. Just let it go. And you have to go on the journey. What's the new picture? You have to find a new one. But it's sicher not that picture. I'm so sorry, but it's not that one. But I can reassure you, it can be an amazing picture. It's a picture you never quite imagined. Has different subtleties, different twists than you thought. Lekach nivcharata. You weren't created for that picture. We were created for this picture. We have to accept that, because that's the stage we're working for, the fifth stage, which is acceptance, where we accept the situation as it is, deeply, profoundly, lovingly, non-judgmentally, non-critically. I truly accept, Rabbi Shalom, that this is what you gave me. And I embrace this Nisayan with heartfelt love for you, Rabbi Shalom. This is why you put me here. This is why you gave me these neshamas. And you entrusted me with this. And I will be your faithful servant. I accept that this is what I've got. This is good for me and them. I truly accept it. We need to get to acceptance, Rabbi say. We need to get through there. We need to get through all these stages. They're all normal. But we must accept the matzav and stop fighting it. Stop trying to tweak it. Stop trying to change it. Stop trying to get back to what we thought and what we wanted, because it's not going there. And I repeat, it can go to a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful place of joy and nachas and pleasure. It can. It's just not that. And this we must accept. That this is my destiny. Kach nivcharta. I was chosen for this. And I accept it as is. This is mi'ikri emunah, Rabbi say. It's mi'ikri emunah. So how do we do this? You join a support group. You get support. You get help. You let go of your own ego. You get it out the way. You go on a journey faithfully to embrace, this is my child who did nothing wrong. They simply experienced trauma. And if anything, I was the one who was not zeichet to work out how to give them the binyan with the safe, secure, seen and soothed, the reinforced column. I was the one who wasn't zeichet to give them that. And chas v'shalom, I should blame them ever for anything. For any Tylenol type thing they ever tried to do. Chas v'shalom, I should blame them for wanting their pain to go away. I want to be the Tylenol. I want to be the Tylenol. I want to walk out of here today. It's my new middle name, Tylenol. And guess what? I'm going to be a dispenser. And I'm going to dispense Tylenol in the form of unconditional love, acceptance, non-judgmental kindness built on a full Havana. I'm going to take responsibility. And I'm going to do that by rebuilding the 4 S's. I'm going to rebuild these 4 S's. I'm going to work like a dog to give them safe, secure, seen, and soothed. That's the dispenser. That's the Tylenol dispenser. That whatever their journey takes them, whatever they do, I'm going to dispense Tylenol. Years ago, I finished with this story. Had a situation I worked with. Child had been, young man had been through his trauma. Days when we didn't even understand trauma, I had no clue about what had happened. The tension in the family got worse and worse and worse. One Friday night, the son comes down to the meal, the Suda. He's wearing his undershirt and jeans. Angrily stands leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, doesn't even want to sit at the table. He's forced to come down to the meal. And in the middle of Kiddush, he flips the switch on the chandelier to turn it off, just to aggravate his father. Father, untrained, uneducated. Those days, what did we have? 20 years ago. Lost it, totally lost it, and lunged at his kid in anger. The middle of Kiddush. They chased each other around the table. Mother and their other siblings trying to block with their chairs, hoping the father wouldn't get him. The kid ran out of the house and found a garden rake and ran round the house, smashing the windows, and ran off into the night. Such pain, such horrible pain. They came to me on Sunday and we talked. They didn't know where he'd gone. Parents came, emergency meeting, we talked. It turned out eventually he'd gone to some uncle across town. And it was agreed that he wouldn't go home for a number of months till we stabilized things. And the parents worked diligently. Very diligently, they worked with me to try and understand It was pretty primitive in those days, but as best as I could, we went through this sugya till they found the place to realize he was obviously hurting. This wasn't deliberate. It was the result of some sort of trauma that we knew, we didn't know what. And about 6 months in, I get a call from the uncle on behalf of this young man. He'd like to come home for a Shabbos. He'd like to try it. He wants to know, are we ready? Are we ready? And I met with the parents. I'd had no contact for 6 months with them, been living by an uncle. And the parents and I went through the sugya, and I prepared them for what I thought was likely to happen. And we decided, yes, we should go ahead with it. And he came home for Shabbos. Fortunately, they were prepared. Friday afternoon, he arrives home. Everything seems to be very nice and polite and respectful. But as the day draws on, the tension starts rising. And by the time the father comes home from shul, the boy didn't go. The boy's in his room. And they call him down, and he comes down with his t-shirt and jeans and stands by the wall, cross-armed. This time the father makes Kiddush. And halfway through Kiddush, lo and behold, boop, he puts the light off. And this time the father finishes Kiddush, as if nothing happened. Just finishes Kiddush. And then he starts handing out the kaisis to the family, his wife, and the children. And he picks up one kais. He walks over to his son. And he gives him the kais. And he says to him, I'm so sorry. I wish I had known back then what I know now. I'm so sorry. And he gives him the kais. And the two of them slide down on the floor crying. And the wife and the children join, and everyone's crying on the floor. And that moment, the healing began. This young man is a frum young man today, married, frum young man. And the healing happened just then when he gave him the Kiddush. With the expression, I wish I'd known then what I know now. I submit to us all, if we can go home with the knowledge we know now and reconnect with our kids and make that apology, each one in our own way. Find the words and language and simply tell our kids, I wish I'd known them what I know now. As all Eibishter helfen, may the healing begin for all of us. May we all be zoiches somehow. We will, if we can reach the acceptance and understanding, the truth about the struggle. If we can really reach that and understand, lekach nivchata, this is what I was chosen for, may we all have the strength, the havana, the love in our hearts to reach and heal and be a true Kiddush Hashem. Thank you.